Okay, people, can you see my screen? Let's make sure that question panel is working because we'll just triple test to make sure. Perfect. All right, so we have a screen and we have a guest. But to start, my name is Katrina Kibben. Just in case you've never attended Recruiting Live before, this is not a webinar. Webinar is a bad word in my book because webinar implies that this is a one-way conversation and that we're presenting something to you, and that's not how I roll. That's not how Recruiting Live rolls. So the goal here is that we're having a live conversation and that you get to talk to another recruiter in the context of everyone talking, and this becomes a resource, not a one-on-one conversation that doesn't actually help you recruit better. So enough about Recruiting Live. Let's talk about my guest. My guest is Jose Watson. He is a regional recruiter with Lowe's, right?
That's correct.
Okay, so tell everybody what that actually means.
So what that means, I don't focus on the corporate positions that we have, like your tech positions, anything like that. I am retail level. So I focused on the day-to-day people that you're going to see when you walk into one of our locations.
Exactly. And I imagine that that creates a few different challenges, right? Sitting in a lot of the recruiting groups, I feel like we're constantly talking about tech talent, and that's the buzzword, right? And you're
Mhm.
not recruiting tech talent.
No, I'm
You're,
not.
I mean, definitely outside of the box on that one.
Yes, yes.
So give me a few examples of things that totally work for tech talent but don't work for you.
So, we'll throw some of the easy ones out there. If we're looking for, tech type people, we can hop on LinkedIn and do a good search through there. Or there's several other websites that specialize in just tech talent that I can
Right.
put jobs on there or look through resumes and find individuals through these sites. That doesn't work for me. For the most part, most of the employees that are going to work at our stores are going to do a quick Google search, jobs in wherever location they are. So that's where going through LinkedIn doesn't work for me unless I'm looking at management or above type positions.
Right. So, how do you make the most of that kind of hyper local job search? What are you doing to get those people that do start their job search by saying, jobs in Denton, Texas, or whatever, wherever you are?
Yeah, so it's all about, and we believe in just investing in our communities and making sure not only the Lowe's brand is out there, but our employer brand is saturated in these areas.
Right.
So that means we are at every college or university, recruiting through there. At every job fair they have, we're there. We're doing information sessions on these campuses, and not just university or college, but we're also high school. Although they're too young
Right.
to work for us, we know at some point they're going to want a job, and most of them stay within my market. We know that about 65% of the high school students will go to school somewhere within my region.
Okay.
So we know that if we start hitting them young, hopefully they'll work for us during their college years and maybe into the future afterwards.
Yeah. So you mentioned job fairs, and I know people on this call, depending where you recruit, they're really interested in that like job fair advice, I guess, because I think job fairs have a bad rap
Mhm.
when they could be great. So
Yeah.
how are you making the most of the job fair?
For me, when I first went to my very first job fair, I thought it was just going to be one of those things where I set up my booth and everyone's going to come flocking to me, but I quickly learned that it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Um, so my job fairs, when I'm going into like let's say a university career fair, I start way in advance where I'm connecting with these universities, going ahead and seeing if there's an available hashtag online. I want to follow that hashtag, look for who's their most influential individuals on Facebook, Twitter, who are tweeting about or talking about this university, and start engaging with them. And
Right.
so and then beyond that, I start looking like who's all going to be there. What kind of other companies are going to be my competition? What's the culture going to be like? Is it going to be a business job fair where the expectation is that I have to be super formal? I have to come a little bit dressed a little bit differently. Yes. Or is
Right.
it going to be for like an arts and sciences type career fair where I can come dressed like I do normally and fit in perfectly? So it always starts way in advance before the actual career fair.
And I was going to say, I think that's actually the definition of social recruiting. And I know The people on this call are probably like, ooh, ugly word. But that's really what it's about, right? It's like taking a recruiting context and finding the social avenues to actually get what you want out of it.
Exactly, exactly. And that's how we can start these conversations long before I get there. And I've talked about this before that even at career fairs, I'm interacting online as much as I'm interacting at my booth. And I have met other candidates who are interacting with the hashtag at a career fair or job fair and have brought them to my booth because they're like, hey, who's this guy that's talking about what's going on here? So,
Yeah. Actually having conversations with people, being social.
crazy, I know.
Well, we have a few people chiming in already. Steve Levy is cheering you on. He's saying, Jose, 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 Jose. And I think that's how he intended to say it, and I'm just embarrassing myself. Uh,
No, I think so too. That's at least that's what my head's saying. So.
exactly, exactly. So we got a question in from Michael Townsend. He asked, are you doing college fairs, local fairs, job fairs put on by the local unemployment office? So I think he's asking about the source of job fairs.
Okay,
What
so
are,
I do.
what are the best ones?
I do all of them,
Okay.
and some of them like I went to one this week that was a youth career fair. I knew I wouldn't get any candidates from this career fair, but I went to it anyways because I do want the Lowe's brand to still be out there with these communities and show that hey, even we're invested into the local workforce, even though we know probably get candidates, we still offer things. So I did like resume reviews while I was there. I did some let's practice interviewing. Whether you're going to interview with us in the future or some other company, let's practice. Let's sit down and practice interviewing. So I do all of them. Career fairs at universities, the local workforce commission.
Yeah.
They put on 2 or 3 a year at most of my locations, so I do those as well.
Cool. I love that goodwill element. Like job fairs are a time where we can actually talk to candidates and help them be better for our companies and for every company who's recruiting.
Yeah, exactly. And so we got to it's that adding value. Whether you're going to come work for us or not, we're just going to let us add value to you so you can be successful. And hopefully, that's a good connection we're able to make that when you are applying, you're going to apply with us.
Exactly. And you'll tell other people too. Like, I met the guy at Lowe's. It wasn't great for me, but you might be great for that job. And it creates that goodwill. Yeah. So Steve Levy just asked, how do you qualify what a campus influencer is? Is it followers, interactions, content? Talk to me a little bit about that.
So, one of the main first ways that I was trained to look for is let's see what their follower count is. But for some of my universities, it's meaningless. They can
Right.
have 500 followers, but they're really, really interactive with a lot of people in that community. So initially, that's what I did. But I learned that it's more about let's see what the conversation's going on their feed. So whether it's on Twitter or if I happen to be a part of a Facebook group that they're in as well, I will
Yeah.
see what kind of conversations are they having. Is it relevant to is it relevant to what's going on in university, or is it something completely different that I really don't want to be a part of?
Yeah.
So
So it's a little more conversation and context. If they're talking about finding a job
mhm,
or the university and they're really tied into what's happening at the university.
exactly.
Good point. Good
And
point.
even better, if the university is following this individual, that's when I know I'm like, okay, this one's obviously, you know, has an impact on what's going on in their online presence. If the university is following them and retweeting them, that type of thing. So that's kind of how I locate these influencers and really start conversations with them.
Exactly. Kazia just chimed in. She said it's like it's part of your CSR, right? Like you're actually helping people and providing the same level of service they could get at a Lowe's
That's
at
right.
a job fair. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Derek Zeller chimes in, social recruiting, that's madness. It's all about spam. He knows better. And I say it with that enthusiasm because I know he's being sarcastic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that still exists though. I mean, it's still there.
exactly. And Levy just said, it sounds like you're not just recruiting, but pulling in people who are going to be customers. How do you think about that? Candidate versus customer, or is it all one thing?
It's hard not to think of them as one thing because you know, there are times when I will put on a red vest and I will work on a sales floor because I know some of our customers are going to be our best employees because they're already sold on the Lowe's brand. Why not encourage them to work for us too? They will have
Yeah.
the knowledge that some of our employees just don't have, and like I said, they already are sold on the brand. let's put them in here. So yeah, for me, it's hard not to separate customer and candidate. I'm going to treat a candidate just like I would if I was working on the sales floor as a customer. I'm going to make sure their experience at their candidate experience is the best that I can provide to make sure they have that good view of what our company is.
Well, and do you really want a bad customer to be a candidate?
Exactly.
Why not?
Exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
you're an asshole. We might just not have you be part of our team, right? Makes sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so Michael Townsend said, you mentioned high schools. Do you do vocational schools in your region?
I do, I do, and we're I'm a little bit more picky on the vocational schools because there's some of them that just don't have any kind of relevance to our industry. Um,
Right.
so I try to pick and choose the ones that have like electrical training programs, any kind of sales programs, management, business type of programs that are
Oh
just
yeah.
those are the ones I really focus on. And when I go to those, they don't do a whole lot of job fairs, but what I do is do a day where I will teach something that they're learning about. Like if it's sales, I will pull in how to do some social selling. I will talk to
Yeah,
our
nice.
selling team and say, hey, teach me some things so I can, teach them on some aspects of social selling. Or if it's business, let's talk about leadership versus being a boss. So
Yes.
those things that I do that once again I'm hoping by investing in your campus that your students are like, wow, I want to work for that place.
Yeah, I love that. See, and this is one of the reasons I love you in general, and I
Mm-hmm.
love how you operate because I feel like you always think people first. You're
Mm-hmm.
not thinking about like your ego or you're not thinking about like positions filled and checking boxes and time to fill, and you're not crunching hard on all of that, which I'm sure you calculate, but every time I talk to you, it's about meeting people where they're at and
Mm-hmm.
providing some level of value, even if it's not a job.
Yeah.
Who taught you
That's,
that?
when I got into my background is not recruiting. I
Okay.
did bilingual education research at a university. That's what I did. And so this position was just kind of, hey, I did, I kind of did recruiting with this research. I had to find campuses to join our research.
Right.
But when this came to me, I had no training, nothing. They said, here's a couple of good webinars. Here's some white papers you might want to download and read that I think would benefit you. So
Yeah.
I kind of went with it. But after going, it was the online presence of other recruiters where I quickly learned that, recruiting isn't so much of me fill the job, fill the job, fill the job, fill the job. What can you give me? What can you give me? What can you give me? Because I have these metrics that I have to meet. At some point, I saw these other recruiters. I'm like, I don't need to have that same mentality. If I'm adding value to these communities and really investing in the people within this community, much like businesses say, people buy from people, we as people want to work for other people. So I want to make sure my brand is as humanized as possible, and investing in you is the best way I can humanize that.
Yeah, and it's good for your community and it's really good for the company. People give so much airtime to employer brand, but in reality, it's just how you treat people.
Yeah,
If you
it's really
treat people well, you don't need a website with 100 videos and testimonials. You don't need all that junk.
yeah, and a lot of doing that kind of investment, you'll meet your metrics. I mean, I don't have no issue meeting my goals that's being set for me. I have no issue doing that. I haven't had to change my tactics to be more, outbound marketing. It's all just
Right.
inbound recruiting, just trying to bring them to me.
I want to like fist bump, like high five you virtually because I think that's what it's all about. I'm sure Levy is cheering over there somewhere. We have a few more questions coming in because of course we do. So Kazi wants to know, just wondering, do you ever measure brand recognition after getting involved in these activities, or where do you see the payoff, I guess?
So it's long term. We know that for most of the times we do this, we're not going to see that immediate payoff where we're going to see a bump in sales or a bump in our applicant flow for positions. It's that long term. So I've been with the company 2 years. I say it took over a year to finally see all these changes that we were making come to fruition. See, like, wow, I am so glad we donated to this school, and
Yeah.
Started doing our Lowe's Heroes projects with this community because now we're seeing the applicant flow that are coming from these individuals and directors of these schools who are saying, hey, if you're looking for jobs, hey, why not Lowe's? They're here all the time. They're a constant presence. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things you got to think long term. I know you have those short term goals that you have to meet, but long term is what I look at. And so, like I said, over a year before I really started seeing the benefits of what I was doing.
Yeah. And I love that just when you're hyper local, I think you have to operate hyper locally,
Mm-hmm.
right? You do have to make that constant presence to
Yeah,
really make some kind of impact. Uh,
exactly.
okay. So Levy wants to know, what's the silliest thing you've ever done at a career fair?
Oh gosh.
I watch your Snapchat, so I know you have fun.
I do, and I enjoy the career fairs where they allow you to have that fun. I'll go to business career fairs. Those are great when I'm looking for my managers or if they have an engineering position they throw my way. Um, I'm more than happy to do those, but I like the ones that are a little bit more laid back. And so I think the craziest one I've ever done was a career fair. It was a career exploration fair.
Okay.
And the theme was games, board games. And so I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go all out with this. So I did a life-size Jenga, a life-size Connect Four that I got one of my local stores to build for me, and we set up a whole game of life section where you can explore opportunities with us while having a little bit of fun.
You might want to take those to all of your job fairs. I feel like you'd get a lot of traffic with some
And I have to say,
real-time
a
games.
lot of job fairs don't appreciate some of my antics.
Oh man, that's too funny. All right, and if you see my eyes wandering, it's because I have two screens. I'm looking full screen at you and looking at these questions coming in on the side. So David wants to know, what are some of your big picture recruiting career goals personally?
I enjoy corporate recruiting. I enjoy having that label. I think that my next move would be moving into recruitment marketing or employer branding, more focused on that. I love recruiting. I love sourcing. I mean, I'm an individual who would cold call anybody every day because I really
And
enjoy
make
that.
friends at it while you're at it. Yeah.
Exactly, but I think in the future, I'm looking to learn a little bit more about the marketing side of recruitment.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Um, So Michael just chimed in. Recruiters are a family. We learn from each other. And the online presence of recruiters is a big help to everyone, right? Because we're just, we're sharing our info. Speaking of online presence, you can find Jose on Twitter at Jose Watts, W-A-T-S. I tweeted a bunch at him this morning promoting the event. So you can find that there if I spelled too quickly for you. Um, so we have a few more questions on job fairs, but I want to touch on Snapchat.
Okay.
Um, so we'll go with the questions first because that's what the people want, but we will get
Okay.
to Snapchat next. So Eli Henderson asked, does your job fair participation take you to any military installations?
It does, and for most of those, I have to travel outside of my region. Um, and for the when I'm doing any kind of military recruitment or career fairs, I make sure and bring our retail level individuals who are active military or retired military, because I don't have that experience personally, so it's hard for me to really give you that viewpoint. I can tell you what our landing career page says about our military involvement, but on a personal level, I always bring someone with me who can be that voice. Here's the reality of a veteran or an active military person who is working at our retail stores.
Right. And so the follow-up question was that do you see any common trend that helps or hurts applicants at those military specific job fairs? It's a
You know,
great
off,
question.
off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that would hurt. I think some of the good things that I see from a lot of candidates at these career fairs is their willingness to show that their military experience is translatable. We know that as recruiters, but a lot of times they don't believe, they're not trained to say, hey, this is leadership whether you're here or working at a retail store. Leadership is the same. The skills you have here is going to be the same. And so a lot of individuals simply won't say that. They say, oh, I don't have a lot of experience in retail, but here's what I did. Well, that's great. What you did would make you excel beyond anything my retail store will be able to offer you.
Absolutely. I mean, I come from two military parents, and I think even watching them, and they were accountants, right? So not even the kind of the stuff that's harder to translate. But I do find that military in general, they're a lot more humble, and
Hmm.
so they'll say, "I don't have that experience," when in reality they do. It's
Yes.
just a little different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, and so people chiming in, Tom just said, I just love this guy. He should do recruitment management so he can train other recruiters on how it's really done. So kudos to you. And, I already believe in you. So clearly.
Well, I appreciate it.
Um,
We're hearing from a lot of these names that I think are way bigger than I am. So,
well, I mean, they're the ones who watch all these people come and go and attend Recruiting Live, thankfully. And I'm so glad to have all of you here. Um, Levy said, in response to your life-size games, he said, I've stood on the table and yelled for people to come over and interview people in front of the desk, on the floor, just like, let's do this, interview now. And that is actually a great segue into Snapchat because that's how I met you. We
mhm.
were on a weekly show I was doing with Jackie Clayton, and we were talking about Snapchat recruiting, and that was our main topic. And you told me that you use Snapchat at job fairs. So
I do.
instead of me telling everyone the story, why don't you tell people how you use the Snapchat at job fairs to keep people in touch?
Yeah, and so you know what? Me using Snapchat started at a career fair where I saw individuals doing things on their phones, and I knew it wasn't just selfies because they were talking and put it down, and I'd see them moving their finger around. So I'm like, what are they doing? So I went and asked a couple of individuals, hey, what are you using to take pictures of? What app are you using? And it was Snapchat. So I was like, you know what? If that's what my candidates are using right now, I need to be on Snapchat. If they're actually using it at a career fair, I definitely need to be on Snapchat. So my next career fair, I had my Snapchat code printed on advertised on everything I had at that career fair, and was just asking individuals, hey, add me if you have any other follow-up questions. Feel free to go through there. And so after that career fair, I had about 14 or so individuals reach out to me and ask, some of them were basic questions like, how do I apply? What's the starting rate? But some were in depth, were like, if I start at retail, what could be my next move? What can I move into? What can be my succession plan for myself? And so it was great. For me, it was a gold mine. But
Yeah.
I needed to expand it outside of my career fair since they would only happen maybe, I have probably 10 to 12 a year that I go to. And so I needed more, I needed to be more constant. So those who did add me were always getting some kind of relevant information for me. And so now I incorporate, stories of what's going on at my retail stores. I've done day in the life of one of my managers or sales specialists. What our employees do for fun, our Lowe's Heroes projects, or how we're investing in the community. So a little bit of everything, and then I interweave what I do personally. You'll see me doing dad stuff and things that I
Moving
enjoy. But
socks. That
yes,
cracks me up.
yeah, and so it just all it makes it more human. It's more human than just saying, "Here's what all my employees are doing. Watch what they're doing." Now you can actually communicate with me. If you
Right.
snap me and ask a question or just start a conversation, I'm there. I'm gonna snap you back. I'm gonna talk to you, and hope to at some point move that away from Snapchat and let's have a good conversation.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, it's very accessible. It
Mm-hmm.
feels one to one in a way that email doesn't, that Twitter
Right.
doesn't.
Right.
Um, it just, I don't know how to explain it. Does anybody on here need a Snapchat tutorial? Because we've done it before, but we have a little time, and I don't want to like go all into Snapchat and have people be like, I don't really know what Snapchat is. Um, so a few questions coming in, and then we'll bounce to the Snapchat. How to, if anyone needs it. This is your time. We have 5 minutes left, people. So Stephanie David just chimed in. How is Lowe's marketing department collaborating with your Snapchat initiative while you're out in the field?
So here's what Lowe's thinks of my branding that I'm doing on my own. Originally, when I started, within 6 months, they took away all my handles, all my platforms, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere, because the following it got huge really quick, and so
Yeah.
they adopted that for their own employer brand strategy. And so after a while, we're like, okay, I need to get back out there because I had too much of an awesome presence and too much great connections going on. I hate to lose this. So
Yeah.
um, now they allow me a lot of leeway and to pretty much do whatever I feel is right as long as I maintain that same tone and voice that our employer brand already has. Um,
Right.
so they give me a lot of freedom that I enjoy and take advantage of.
And I think you're doing an incredible job explain like actually having the conversations with people on their behalf.
Mhm.
It works. Uh, David Nicola just chimed in. I'm generally prohibited from using Snapchat. My 18-year-old told me so. That's because she doesn't want you to see what's going on. Uh, um, and so we did get an ask for the tutorial. So do you want to go through and do a quick, like, this is Snapchat, this is the buttons,
Sure,
button review?
sure. Let me pull it up for you.
He's gonna have tons of messages. If you opened mine, I'd have like one.
All right, so this is your login screen, and let's see.
So there's kind of two views on it. One is to view stories, and one is to view your messages.
Exactly. So when you swipe right, my phone's not working now, but when
Of
you swipe
course.
right, that'll be your messages, any kind of messages that you get. If it's blue, it's going to be audio. If this little dot down here is blue, it's going to be audio or text messages. And if it's red, it's going to be pictures or video. So that's how I talk to people. And then if you
And you can
swipe,
change their names, right? So you can
yes,
actually put a name in to help you organize for the job search.
I do. So when I have individuals add me, the first thing I try to figure out is where they find me from. Are they a candidate or are they just someone who found me on Twitter posting or Instagram
Right.
post? So I need to know that. So if they're a candidate, let's see, let me pull it up. So you can see I organized everybody. So anybody that has a ghost are going to be uh, individuals I know personally in some way, or if they have a schoolhouse, it's because I've met them at some kind of campus. And then
Okay.
beside that, I have numbers. So if it's a schoolhouse with number one, it means I found them from Texas Tech University. And if
I
it's
love
followed
it.
by E, it means they're an engineer. So I know if even though I can't help them, I know to connect them to another recruiter who can help them if they're looking for that career. And then of
Emoji
course,
organization.
yes, and it had to be. I did just numbers and letters at first, but it got so complicated that I couldn't even keep up with my own organization. So
Yeah.
the emoji just groups them real quick for me, so I can already choose if I'm doing a career fair snap story. I want to make sure and go in and send a quick snap to all those individuals that are have been to this career fair, so that they know to follow along at some point.
Yeah. And then stories are basically the concept of like a post on Facebook that you would make to everyone, right? And
Exactly.
so you can put things in a sequence so that people actually get a full story. You do a really great job of like little bites to tell a story.
Yeah.
And I think that's the point of Snapchat. Many people think of it as just like a text and disappear feature, but I think it's a storytelling tool.
It really is. And so, like today, my story today is going to be how to survive retail. And so
Yeah,
I started out with asking everybody who follows me, tell me if you've worked in retail, tell me your greatest story. So I'm
yeah.
just starting the conversation that way. And then this afternoon, I'm going to go to one of my retail stores and just go to employees and say, how are you surviving retail? How do you survive retail? If someone's going to come into this environment, what is your best tip?
Yeah. So we have 1 minute left. I can't believe this time goes so fast. They're
I
like, you have
know.
to do an hour, but I love the half hour because I think it's just like we just crank through it. There's not any dull time. The last tip I always tell people on Snapchat because it took me way too long to find it. The little ghost at the top is where you add friends.
Yes.
Um, I'm old. It took me a long time. So you just click on the little ghost at the top, and it'll give you the information. You can find me. I'm Katrina Kibben. You're Jose Watts.
Jose_Watson. The
Perfect.
only platform where I could get my full name for whatever reason.
I love it because you grabbed it early. Do you know
Exactly.
Snapchat actually beat Twitter as of today for daily users?
Really? I didn't hear about that yet.
Yeah, as of today, that was the report. All right. Well, everyone who's on the line, this was recorded, so you'll be able to share this with anyone on your team who needs a refresher in what social recruiting actually means, wants to learn more about Snapchat, or wants to learn more about job fairs. Like I said, you can find Jose on Twitter at Jose Watts. I'm sure we're all recruiters and sourcers here, so you can find him because
Yes.
that's what you do. Uh, and Jose, thank you so much.
Yeah, no
This was
problem.
refreshing. It really
Thank
was.
you for
I talked to
inviting
a
me. I
lot
really
of
appreciate it.
people. You're awesome. I'm so glad we got you in the first ones. And everyone who's on the line, I will not see you next week. I'm taking a week off because I'm going on vacation. But the following week, we have Dean DaCosta live on the air, and he's
Awesome.
just gonna like crank tools. I'm basically just gonna let him do screen share, and we'll watch him source away. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, again, thank you, and we will see all of you in 2 weeks at 1 p.m. Eastern. All right.